Welcome to the Rise and Wander podcast, where we'll explore adventure, spirituality, and empowerment through the outdoors and beyond. Join me, Carla Amador, as we focus on topics around the mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional benefits derived through the outdoors. You'll also hear inspiring stories, get educated, and more. Let's get started. Are you ready to take a life-changing journey? Join me for a hike per week or 52 hikes within a year at 52hikechallenge.com. Gain the physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional benefits derived through the outdoors. You'll also gain access to community, education, resources, and more. Plus, get 10% off on your sign up and first order with code RISE25. That's RISE25. See you on the trails. Hey friends, getting outside and hiking changed my life back in 2014. Now I want to share an even bigger adventure with you all. This October 2026, I will be leading a small group to Nepal to trek the iconic Annapurna circuit. Join me on a powerful journey through the Himalayas that challenges your body, expands your mind, and connects you deeply with nature and each other. This is more than a trip, it's a milestone. And if trekking Nepal has ever been on your bucket list, I would love for you to join us. Spots are limited, and you can learn more on our website at 52hikechallenge.com. Click on the Events and Trips tab, and then Adventure Trips with 52 to learn more. Welcome to the Rise and Wander podcast, episode 15 of series 4. Can you believe we're here? It's been a long, wild ride, and this series is all about hiking basics and teaching you everything you need to learn about hiking. So I just got back from a trip. I'm training for the Annapurna Circuit trek. And one of my friends who was coming on the trip and I were in Colorado for the week training. We hiked about 45 miles. We had all kinds of weather conditions. And it was really great getting out there, pushing past my own limits. It's funny how you get out on the trail and they always teach you something. In today's episode, I actually want to talk about self-care before you go hiking, during your hike, and after your hike. So it's fitting. So hopefully I'll have some stories for you about my week hiking, and I think some additional information and notes that I've taken to ensure that we don't forget anything important here. Today, I wanted to first talk about goal setting and motivation and how that's an important part of self-care, but also just how that helps you in your life. Having some form of motivation in whatever you're doing is really important. Number one, it gives you something to work towards. It gives you something to look forward to. So it helps to keep that excitement in your life. And as many of you who are here probably have noticed, when you get outside, it's a great way to help you with your mental well-being, with your physical well-being, with your spiritual and emotional well-being. These are ways that we take care of ourselves in our lives, is we think about things that are important to us, and then we make space to work towards something worthy. And so I think when you really love yourself, which is a huge part of self-care, you want to do things that are positive for you in your life. And I think getting outside and that physical exercise is a great way to do that. Of course, setting goals for yourself, like taking the 52 hike challenge, is a great way to stay motivated, or planning a camping trip, or maybe you are planning a road trip and you want to go hiking in your favorite national parks or new national parks. That will keep you excited and will help you in your journey to feel like you have things to look forward to, because life can be so busy, but also chaotic. And we need that time to really nourish ourselves and our goals in life in order to live happy, productive lives, I feel. Some things you can do that I don't know if I've touched on before in this podcast, but I wanted to touch on today was setting smart goals for yourself. And that may be new for some of you. So let me share this document with you guys that talks about smart goals for those of you that might be new to what that is. Okay, so this is the screen I wanted to show you. Smart goals. I found this online, but I really like how this breaks everything down. So when you set goals for yourself, you want them to be specific. So, like in the case of 52 hikes, your goal would be to reach 52 hikes within 52 weeks or a year. It's something you can measure. Okay, that's what the M stands for. There's a saying, in business and in life that you can't improve what you can't measure because you can't really go back and look at your progress, right? So, in something like the 52 hikes, you can surely measure, did I hike 10 times versus 3 times? So, that is a way that you're able to look and see, am I progressing towards that goal that I've set myself? Is it achievable? Okay, that's the A. Is it something that is realistic for me to do, right? So for 52 hike challenge, it's one hike per week, 1 mile minimum. For a lot of people, that is very attainable. Everyone has their own ways of deciding how long they want to make their hikes. I've heard a lot of people say, hey, I don't count anything under 3 miles. Some people say, I won't count anything that's not on trail, and that's fine. But what you want to look at, is this something that I can achieve? Is this within reach for myself? Sometimes we can set goals that maybe we're not really quite there yet, but you can work your way towards that. For example, I couldn't just get off the couch and say, I'm going to go climb Mount Everest tomorrow. I would actually need to do a lot of things to get to that point. Maybe I can achieve that within a year, but I'd have to hire people to show me how to snow travel. I'd have to learn how to work with a lot of the gear that you need for that. I don't think that for me right now would be something I would say is achievable for me, but something like Mount Kilimanjaro was a lot more achievable for me. So make sure that when you're thinking about your goals, dream big for sure. And also when you're setting these goals, make sure that you can logically reach them within your desired time frame. Okay. Is it relevant? Are the steps you're taking relevant to reaching that overall arching goal? So, for example, if you are trying to do the 52 hike challenge and then you like biking, you're going to have to substitute that biking for your hikes potentially. So, you would want to switch out your routine so that you are actually, in fact, working towards that end goal of reaching your 52 hikes and making sure that what you're doing, the activities are in alignment with that end goal of the 52 hikes. And then the T stands for timed, right? So this is what helps you to stay accountable. It helps you to stay focused on that vision of when you want to reach that goal by. And the more you're able to look at that time period, like for example, if I started the 52 hike challenge March 1st of 2026, I would have until February 28th of 2027 to complete my goal. So I can actually look at a calendar and plan accordingly, and every week go back and check on my progress. Am I actually working on that goal? Am I achieving that? And am I on track to complete that goal? So this is a really great thing that has helped me a lot in my life, both personally with my 52 hikes and also within my businesses. And it just helps to keep me accountable and helps me to stay on track. So that was my first item I wanted to share today with you all in talking about staying motivated and how to do that, because it's easy to lose motivation. And another thing on motivation is that it's highly tied to your big why. Why am I doing this? Why am I working towards that goal? Having an intrinsic knowing of why you're doing something will really help you when maybe you lose motivation, or when maybe you're tired, or when you're feeling down. Whatever happens in your life, how are you going to ensure that you are staying accountable to that dream that you had or that goal if you don't have that strong why? And I've heard this from people in my life that have done amazing things. They always talk about that why is what's going to keep you going when it gets difficult. And it's going to get difficult. And there's going to be so many excuses for why you're not working towards the thing that you said you wanted to do. Life gets busy and hectic. People have kids, people have demanding jobs, and making sure that you have that strong why will help you in your life whenever it gets challenging. Other things that happen when it comes to setting goals, or when it comes to like getting outside, is weather. Weather is a huge component of people getting outside. I just spoke to my leaders about this, and I wanted to take some quotes from them to share with you all regarding what they do when they're feeling discouraged, or when the weather's really hot, or when it's too cold, especially in the heat. I think people struggle with getting outside in places like Arizona. And that's why it's really great to have a plan of action, so that when you know that it's going to be hot, you also are able to come back and reassess on how to still achieve your goal while making sure you stay safe. Tiffany, who is one of our leader managers, she wanted to share that it's so important to check the weather forecast. If it's unsafe, bad air quality, any of that, it's okay to reassess and to take care of yourself first, and then go back out when you feel it's safe. So that was one of Tiffany's tips. In terms of hiking when it's hot, Kelly, one of our leaders from Northern California, wanted to remind you guys that it's okay to hike early in the morning. It makes for a really great way to wake up and to get your day going. Another tip from Tiffany was to not forget that you can bring a cooling towel, a cooling shirt. I've talked about Kafka's cool tie that you can bring. Last week when we were hiking in Colorado, there was one particular day that was extremely hot, and there were a few places where we were able to get to a river crossing, and we doused our hats. I doused my shirt, and we put some cold water on our heads to help us. We took a couple of breaks in the shade. Hiking near water sources is another great tip, hiking up at elevation. And please take care of your animals. I know in our last episode, Mike shared the sad thing that people take their dogs out and forget the dog's going to get hot out there. So make sure you have enough water for your dogs, and you learn what you need to do to look for the warning signs of if your pet is struggling out in the heat. So take care of your animals, leader Chris. And then Shelly just said, please be aware of hiking with your dogs, and also be aware of if they're going and drinking still water, because unfortunately, not all water sources are going to be clean and safe to drink. Sometimes your animals can get sick when they're drinking still water. Don't be afraid to turn around. What's not safe for me today? If you're feeling like, hey, it's gotten really hot, we need to turn around. Or, hey, I didn't realize it was going to be this hot today. Of course, a lot of this can be prevented if you look at the weather before and you make a plan of action, a plan B. Make sure you have plenty of water. Kelly also suggested hiking with a life straw or some sort of filter. On our trip, Connie had a filter, which was a lifesaver, because there were a few times where we both needed to refill water, and it was really nice to have cold water coming from a flowing stream. There's also tips around water, and there were some lakes that we came across that I didn't feel comfortable. Even if we had a filter, I didn't feel comfortable. I always like to look for water that's running, not still water. I saw a lot of algae at this one lake, and I just was like, I don't think that's safe. So we waited until we knew we were going to come across a stream, and we waited to refill water there. That's like the main thing when it comes to weather that our leaders wanted to share with you all. Other things that can happen as well when you are hiking is not only the heat, but it's rain and knowing, do I have a rain jacket? Do I have the proper equipment? Are my shoes going to be okay in muddy conditions? Are my shoes waterproof? Snow is another condition to be aware of. Do I have the proper equipment for that? Do I have micro spikes? Do I have warm enough clothes? Those weather conditions can really deter someone from going out, but it doesn't have to. If you have the right gear and you're prepared, then you're going to be able to go out in most seasons and also different types of weather as long as you feel safe and confident. And the best way to do that is to have the proper gear, test it out, get comfortable on a local trail, and then you can continue on once you have that feeling that you understand your gear and you know your limitations, which is really important. I wanted to share with you all a screen on hypothermia so you know what to look out for when you are hiking and what that is versus frostbite. So, hypothermia, if you're out and it gets really cold or you got wet, you fell in a river and now your clothes are soaked and you're not drying out, and now it's nighttime, it's really cold and you start shivering, that would be a sign of hypothermia. Okay, that's when your core body temperature drops too low, and that is dangerous. You can feel exhausted, confused, slurred speech, drowsiness. You need to get help right away. Frostbite is also another condition that would happen in very severe cold conditions, and that's when your skin loses blood circulation and freezes. So things that you want to look out for is your skin turning white or grayish, yellow. Areas that typically suffer from frostbite include your fingers, your ears, and your nose. Even your lips could have that happen. Your skin is going to be unusually firm or waxy and numb. This does happen when people are hiking up at really high altitude and in snow and it's freezing. And so you'll see when you look at any sort of documentary or you're looking at any sort of videos of mountaineers, you'll see the purple or the dark here. So just be aware that when you're hiking in the snow, really cold weather, you want to make sure that you keep an eye out on your skin. Try to keep those sensitive areas warm if you can with things like a buff, all the extra layers you need to protect your skin, but also be aware of hypothermia and frostbite are things that you need to consider and think about and get help right away. I wanted to also share with you about heat stroke and heat exhaustion. For those of you that are watching the video, we have our blog on our website, and there's this whole blog series on hiking safely in the heat, and we talk a lot of different tips and things of that sort. I'm going to add it to the show notes. But if you scroll down, we have this document here that talks about heat exhaustion versus heat stroke. So you want to be aware of this because if any of this happens, you need to get help right away. For heat exhaustion, if you felt faint or dizzy, you feel anxious, confused, you're sweating profusely, you have a fast, weak pulse, if you're feeling nauseated or vomiting, or your skin is cold, clammy, or you have muscle cramps, those are all symptoms of heat exhaustion. Also, for any of you hiking with people, if you see any of these symptoms, you might want to get help right away. Now, heat stroke is going to have a throbbing headache. You're going to have anxiety and confusion. Your sweating stops at that point, okay? There's a fast and strong pulse. There may be nausea or vomiting, and the skin will be hot, red, and dry. The thing about heat stroke is that there could be a loss of consciousness. So you want to get help right away for any of these. If you see someone's struggling, you want to get them to some sort of shade, give them water, ask them to rest and reassess. It's okay to call for services, especially if you start noticing that they're getting confused. Call for support because it could be a matter of life and death. So just knowing this information is important for yourself, for the safety of others, but also being aware that you don't want to hike when it's extremely hot. For me, once it's 80 degrees, it's quite hot. I think we were hiking in 82-degree weather this week. It was fine in the morning. It got really hot in the day, but we were almost done when it got really hot. And like I said, we stopped, we took some breaks in the shade, we put cold water on our heads. But I tend to try to stay away from hiking at 80-degree plus weather. Be mindful, bring plenty of water, have a plan if you are planning to hike in 80-degree weather. But if you can, try to go earlier or later in the day just to avoid any of these potential issues that will affect you and your health. So, yeah, that's important to think through as you're preparing and taking care of yourself. So, we've talked a lot about getting up early, planning ahead for your hikes, and set your alarm. That's really important in getting ready. You don't want to take off too late. There's other things you need to consider. Am I going to a trail that's really busy? Sometimes, if you get there at 8 or 9, you'll find that the trailhead is really packed. It's really good to start thinking about that when you're picking your trails. Other things that can happen when you're out in nature, the elements and the conditions are out of your control, right? You're out in the wild sometimes in the backcountry, and things happen out there. There are medical emergencies. It may not be you, it may be someone else you come across. One time I was backpacking with friends and we came across a group that had been injured and we all were able to help them. We had someone who had just completed their wilderness first aid course and we helped bandage them and they had called for help already. That's the thing is that you might come across something like that on the trails and you want to be able to stay calm, and you want to be able to take deep breaths because when you are in an emergency, you need to think as clearly as possible. We actually teach our leaders there's a whole risk management where we talk about, hey, if there's an emergency, know your local emergency services numbers, know where the nearest hospital is, have some way that you can call for emergency services. So even preparing for your own hikes, that's never a bad idea depending on what you're getting into. You need to be able to take those deep breaths and take the time to understand what's going on so you can get the proper help, whether that's for yourself or someone else, or you came across someone or you're with friends and someone gets injured on the hike. Really great skill to have for yourself and to think about because you just never know what's going to happen. Some other things, just how to stay accountable, right? Staying accountable is one of the things that helps us in our lives. It helps us to work on the things we said we were going to work on. If you said you were going to go on a hike this week, having someone that's there that's going to go with you helps to stay accountable. For example, as we're training for this trip, that's one of the top things that has been helpful. We have a group that gets together once a month. For example, I have friends that are coming along and I've been able to go on hikes with them. That helps me to stay accountable to meeting my goal for the week. Every week we have goals we need to reach. And I know that having those people there that are going to go hiking with me really helps me. Another thing I do to stay accountable is I write everything down in my calendar. So I printed a calendar. It's not going to be perfect, but I actually put in there the days that I was going to go hike and what the goal was for that week. Find the things that help keep you accountable and do those things. That's going to help you in your life reaching these goals that we talked about and is really going to help you just to achieve the things you want to do and help you to feel good about yourself because you're actually working towards that thing that you said you wanted to do. All of this takes a lot of being able to go out and do things that you want to do. You need to build your confidence and recognize that confidence doesn't just happen. You have to work on it. Not everyone is born with confidence, and it's something that you take little steps. And as you see that you're progressing, it starts building up your confidence. And oh, yeah, I can do that thing. I can get up early and I can go for a 1 mile hike. And so when you do that consistently, then you go back and you go, hey, since I got up early and I was able to do a mile, I think I'm ready to do a 2 mile hike. And then you keep building. and recognize that it's those building blocks that will eventually help you to look back at everything you've done and then gives you that boost to say, you know what, I probably could do so much more. Don't be afraid to sometimes fall down, and that's a part of the process too. And to celebrate the wins and also when things don't go as planned, that's a part of it. Everyone who's been successful in life has fallen many times, has had to learn from their mistakes. And this is no different. And as you're setting your goals for yourself, know that it's a muscle that you're going to be building. And as you continue doing hard things and getting through them, you're going to be like, oh, yeah. And by the way, most successful people that I've talked to tell me and have said to me many times, I don't know what I'm doing half of the time, but I still just go out and do it. And I think that thing has helped me a lot when I struggle and when I'm like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing here. And then it's, wait, my mentors also sometimes have that very same thought, but they still do it. And guess what? You learn in the action. You learn as you take those steps forward. And it's such a great metaphor for life, taking those blind footsteps towards something and then seeing it come to manifest because you had that faith and you believed in that vision or that goal. And if everything is aligned, then things will come together so that you are learning, growing, and then you get to that point of where you wanted to get to. Other things that are going to help you when preparing for your hikes before, during and after, of course, is being organized, prepping for your hike ahead of time. I know that when we were in Colorado this last week, we had already picked out quite a few hikes and we just sat down and we're like, okay, this is what we're doing on Monday. This is what we're doing on Tuesday. This is what we're doing on Thursday. And we knew that we were going to have some days that were going to be longer than others. We already had a list of hikes that we could choose from. In addition to that, of course, looking up any details we needed. We found out we had to have a four-wheel drive vehicle for one of the hikes, and my friend had a four-wheel drive vehicle, so we took that. Also, one of the hikes we went on did not have a ton of information, so I knew it wasn't going to be as heavily trafficked as some of the other hikes. When we got there, I was, let's be aware because we're more in the back country. We might come across big animals. We didn't. We just came across some deer, which was really lovely, but it was still good to know that beforehand so that we were prepared. I had my whistle out. My friend had this little device that you could push and it will sound off an alarm to scare anything off. So, yeah, having your stuff ready. We always packed everything the night before. We packed our lunches. We had our water ready in our packs. We had our electrolytes already prepared and in the fridge. And then that is another great thing to do before your hikes is not wait until the morning of and then be like, oh no, now I have to pack, because all that prep could take you an extra hour. So that can make a big difference in, again, getting to the trailhead early enough, making sure you're getting there before it gets really hot, for example. Having checklists for yourselves. This is a really good one. I think that there are times where, like the night before, I'll go through and be like, don't forget these items. Sometimes I have forgotten things because I didn't go through my checklist. So I think this is really key for some of you is to print out a checklist. You can even laminate it, and then every time you use it, check it off, clean it, reuse it next time. I have a checklist that I use for camping and backpacking that really helps me. And this could be something you do for yourselves. Everyone is going to have different things for their own checklist. For example, my friend needs to have some medications with her. If you have children, you're going to need to think about their packing lists, or your dog. Yeah, it's a great time to create your own checklist. You can use Canva, even a plain piece of paper, and just make sure you have something that you always look at before you leave the house to make sure you don't forget something. Because I actually forgot my hat on that last really long hike, and we got to the trailhead and I was like, we're not going back. So I really just came up with a plan B. At the end, I ended up taking my shirt and putting it over my head as well, just to keep some of the heat off of my face. And those things happen sometimes. And if it would have been something that was like non-negotiable. Had I forgotten all my sun protection, I had, of course, sunscreen and I had glasses. So that was not an issue. But if I had no sun protection, I probably would have had not been able to go on that hike. So making sure that you're able to assess for yourself and make decisions that are going to be most beneficial is also important. And sometimes that means, hey, if I forgot something that's really important, I need to turn around and I need to go home or come back, or I'm going to have to reschedule my hike. Don't be afraid of making those sorts of choices, even if you've driven a long way, because again, your life is not worth it. You don't want to risk the lives of others that are going to have to come and rescue you if something happens. And I could go on and on. Another thing that is really great is to have extra clothing in your car and a support bag for after the hike. And I've talked about this sometimes depending on what I'm doing. When I used to hike really long miles, like 15 plus mile hikes, I would always have a change of clothes, baby wipes, sandals, deodorant, snacks, and more water so that when I got down to the car, I could change, I could be more comfortable because you do get sweaty and also you've been in these clothes all day long. You're probably going to be hungry. Maybe you've gone through all your snacks. Maybe you've just finished the last of your water. So having that post hike bag is key. At least at minimum, I try to always have my sandals in my car. It's so nice to get a rest after a long day outside. Another thing, self care that's really important is resting. You need to rest before your hike if possible and after your hike. When I get home, I like to shower, eat, and just relax. That's my go to. I need my body to replenish. I like to have electrolytes. Sometimes I even need to stretch for a while. And so you will figure out what you need, but taking care of yourself and maybe giving yourself grace, not getting off the mountain and then, oh man, I have to go to work or have to go to a party. You can do that, but it's just nice to give yourself the time to rest and to let your body recover from such a long day out in nature. This past week when I was in Colorado, we were up at 9,000 feet. So it was a little harder for me to sleep. So if possible, try to get your rest before your hikes, get your 8 hours of sleep, whatever you need, because depending on what you're doing, if you're not well rested, you're going to be sluggish, and you don't want to be sluggish on something like if you're doing some sort of peaks, things of that sort that really require you to be on your game. The last thing I want to talk about is this aspect of hiking that is the ego. And that's that part of you that is, oh, I need to make the summit, or I need to have a photo worthy hike, or even things like you're not able to do what you used to do 10 years ago because you're getting older and your body's changing, or comparing yourself to other hikers and their hikes and being like, my hike isn't as exciting as theirs. That is all stuff that is, I would say it's part of that ego side of us that wants things to be grand and perfect and amazing, but recognize that getting outside is the goal, right? Getting outside is the purpose. Yes, having the goals and reaching them is great, but it's always about the journey and also being humble and being grateful for being outside. People who live in places like Washington compared to someone who lives in, let's just say, Iowa, the hikes are going to be different. You're going to have a lot more mountains, maybe in Colorado versus a place like, let's just say, Arizona. I'm just giving you an example. Desert hikes versus mountain hiking. Everyone is on their own journey. And when you compare, you take away that gratitude component. So hike your own hike. I really like that saying, and be grateful for what you do have. And of course, yes, there's nothing wrong with wanting or desiring. And that's where making plans to go visit someplace that you want to visit. Maybe you want to go hike in the mountains. Set that as one of your goals towards the big goal, or maybe it's a celebration when you've stayed consistent on your journey. I'm getting ready here to head out next week on a road trip, and I'm really excited because I'm going to be hiking somewhere new and in national parks. And it's not my day to day. I'm not at a national park every day. It's something to look forward to. Take the time to also plan fun and exciting adventures for yourself that make you feel good and that keep you inspired and motivated. The last thing on that is summit fever, and that's really dangerous. It's when you want to get to the summit no matter what. And when the conditions are not right, when there's thunder and lightning, when there is snow and you don't have the right gear, when it's gotten really late or you're exhausted, you need to have the ability to really sit with yourself and to just say, hey, I'd rather be safe than sorry. I'm going to turn around and I will try again another time. Let's normalize being okay with turning around, being okay with not reaching the summit and being happy with, hey, I spent the day out in nature and that's good enough. The last thing is knowing your own abilities and being able to not push past what that is. And again, I'll go back to my example from this last week of hiking in Colorado because I feel like there were a lot of things that happened on that trip that are very relatable to this topic. And one of the days, I believe the hike was going to be about 13 miles long, and I was tired and I knew that this extra mile was going to make a difference for me. And so we ended up taking the vehicle up an extra mile and we did 12 miles that day. I had to speak up for myself and just say, hey, I don't feel like I want to do more than 12 miles today. And I just knew that was right for me. So make sure that whatever you're doing, that you always check in with yourself. You know what's best for you and to not be afraid to set your own boundaries and to advocate for yourself because ultimately you only have yourself to look out for you and you want to be able to do this for as long as possible and this is one of the key ways to ensure that you're able to continue to do the things that are important to you is to check in with yourself, to know yourself, and also know that there might be times where you need to push yourself out of your comfort zone within reason. I think our first hike we did was almost 14 miles long, and I was a little bit like, oh man, I haven't been hiking more than 8 miles. I hope I'm going to be okay. And I was fine. I've been hiking consistently, just haven't been doing more than 10 plus miles. And so I was a little nervous. I made it. My feet hurt the last 2 miles down a little bit, and I was really excited to get to the car and put my sandals on, but I was fine. I recovered. And I did have a little bit of body pain, but that's normal. So, yeah, don't be afraid to take your time as you work towards your goal, as you increase your mileage, as you increase the adventures you're going on, and continue to grow in this beautiful journey of the outdoors. That's it for today's podcast. Thank you so much for being here, for listening. Please forward this and share this with your friends. And also, so much gratitude to all the leaders at 52 Hike Challenge that helped put together a couple of words of wisdom for you all. And see you in the next episode.